Thank you so much, Amy. I love this whole introducing thing that you guys do in Wisconsin. We don't do that in Oregon. My name is Carrie and I am an alcoholic. I always have been and I always will be. Like Amy said, my home group is the New Horizons group in beautiful Bend, Oregon, which is where I met Amy. We meet 6 days a week. Right now, we are currently Zooming. Normally I would invite you if you're ever through Oregon to swing by. Because we meet 6 days a week, chances are you will be here on one of the days. So right now I could probably put a Zoom link up. I didn't do that. I didn't prepare for that, but maybe by the end of the meeting, I will invite you to come virtually visit me one of those 6 days. So anyways, I do have a sobriety date of March 25th, 2010. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I sponsor women who sponsor women. I don't tell you those things to impress you, and I'm trying to keep it slow. I see that we have ASL interpreter here, and I really appreciate that. And I'm a fast talker, so I'm gonna really try hard to keep the pace down. I tell you those things about having a sponsor who has a sponsor and sponsoring women who sponsor women and being in the middle of my home group. I'm a permanent fixture there. Again, not to impress you, but because those are the things that keep me in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. They keep me right-sized, no better than, no worse than, and right in the middle of the herd, which is where God wants me to be. And that has been made abundantly clear to me. I have, how long do I talk for? 40 minutes? Is that, I'm really bad at keeping time. So I'm hoping that somebody, when I have, 5 minutes left, could somebody start like waving at me or putting up a hand or something? I don't keep time well for myself. But at least I know that today. So I guess I'll just start by qualifying myself as an alcoholic. I qualify to be in this room and to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a big price was paid for that. I think that the ticket into Alcoholics Anonymous is a high-priced ticket. At least it was for me. And I'm not talking about consequences. My juvenile detention record, which is impressive. I won't go into that. It doesn't qualify me to be here. My DUIs don't qualify me to be here. All of the wreckage and my insane thinking doesn't qualify me to be here. Being an egomaniac with an inferiority complex does not qualify me to be here. Having road rage does not qualify me to be here. Having isms does not qualify me to be here. I know a lot of people in this world that are not alcoholic and they have more isms than I do. So I'll just leave it at that. What qualifies me to be here is the very thing that I didn't know, when I first got into Alcoholics Anonymous made me an alcoholic. And the reason why it's so important for me to talk about what qualifies me to be here is because I know of at least 3 newcomer alcoholics in this room tonight, and those are the ones I know about. So I'm sure that there are more people who are just getting introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. I know one person in this room tonight, in this Zoom room, who has never been to a face-to-face meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous just yet. So at this point, I want to welcome you to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to welcome you to hopefully some of my talk is about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, not to be confused with the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to, I want to hopefully say something that you identify with. And what I mean by identify is that magic of me too. That magic of me too, which is our entire foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous. And why I say that is because when I got here, I heard things that I didn't identify with. I didn't identify with road rage. You know, you guys told me, well, who knows what was said in meetings, but what I heard in meetings, which might not align up with what was actually said, was things like my alcoholic thinking got me in trouble today, and I had road rage. I'd never had road rage. My best friend, who's not an alcoholic, she's got some of the worst road rage I've ever seen. You know, I like chocolate and not vanilla. Apparently that qualified me to be here when I was new. Somebody told me that alcoholics like chocolate. I heard a lot of confusing things. I do like chocolate, but again, that doesn't qualify me. What I was struggling with when I got here, and I'm using my big book, and I'm going to be unapologetic about that tonight. What qualified me to be here is something that I had no idea that I had. I was not under the bridge with a brown paper bag drinking out of a bottle when I got here. I had not lost it all. Was I happy? No. My 4-year-old daughter, her Barbie dolls were not riding horses. They weren't playing house. They were taking makeshift Jello shots. And I walked into that when she was 4 years old. She came into the bathroom one evening, 5 o'clock. I was getting ready for happy hour. So I'm putting on makeup and I'm getting dressed to go out and have a drink with girls. And so of course I'm having my pre-drink, right, in the bathroom while I'm putting on my makeup like we do. And she got really excited when she saw me putting my makeup on at nighttime. And I told her, "What are you so excited about? Why are you getting excited that mommy's putting her makeup on?" And she said, "Because it's nighttime." And I said, "Yeah, and what does that mean?" And she said that she was excited because tomorrow will be movie day. And that's what happens when I go out. Even if I'm expected to be home at 8 o'clock and brush my teeth and go to bed, which never happened. I would end up, if I even came home that day, if I even came home that night, sometimes 2-3 days would go by. But when I would come home, I would be in pitiful and comprehensible morbid reflection. I would be trying to make it up to her. We would be watching Curious George reruns all through the next day because I would be too sick to get out of bed. And she thought that was great because those were the times that mommy would spend time with her. So when I got to AA, I heard things that I didn't identify with. I had never been physically addicted to alcohol. I thought that alcoholism was an addiction. Not true. Alcohol is an addictive substance, so most alcoholics eventually end up physically, dependent on alcohol, and that's why we have withdrawals and detox and all that. I didn't have a detox. I've never had a physical withdrawal from alcohol. I've never been through detox. So I see that, difference, not a similarity. I've never stuck a needle in my arm. I don't do drugs. I didn't do that. I didn't have outside issues in that way. So those are more differences that I saw. I wasn't a daily drinker. How could I be? It took me 2 to 3 days to recover from a hangover every single time I went out and got drunk. And I didn't hear about the hair of the dog until I got to AA. So that would have helped me back in the day. I didn't realize until I was whining one day. I used to call it sharing, whining one day in a meeting. And an old timer who cared more about my life than my feelings. Thank you to those old timers who I hated back in the day, and now they're the ones that I respect, right? An old timer who cared more about my life than my feelings cross-talked me and said, "Look, little girl," that's what he called me. I was 30. It was 10 years ago. And he said, "It doesn't matter how long we've drank for. It doesn't matter how much you drink when you drink. It doesn't matter how often you drink.
the only thing that matters is what happens when you drink. And that's when I got into the doctor's opinion. And the doctor's opinion in the front of the big book is what qualifies me to be here. I'm just going to read a little bit of something because this is my story. This is how I drank, and I drank this way from day one. I've never had a normal relationship with alcohol. So it says that there's all these different types of alcoholics. It goes through type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5. And then it finally gets down to the bottom and it says, you know, all of these and many others have one symptom in common. Not 2, not 3, not 4. Road rage is not on here. Egomania with an inferiority complex is not on here. It says all of these have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing a phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon of craving, allergy, if you will, is what sets us apart as a distinct entity. It's what differentiates us and sets us apart as a distinct entity. The allergy I've had since day one. I didn't know it. I didn't know what an allergy was. I thought that an allergy was like breaking out in hives. I've seen people who are allergic to strawberries or peanuts. And so my first sponsor, luckily, she said I only needed 2 books until I was through the steps. That's it, 2 books. She actually confiscated my 12 and 12 from me because I got too smart. She said I needed 2 books. I needed a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and a dictionary. And thank God for that, because I don't know how to keep things simple. I want to complicate everything. And so I looked up allergy. In 1935, the word allergy meant an abnormal reaction to a food or substance. Holy, that is what is the matter with me. It's not a lack of willpower. I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol, and I always have. And what that looks like for me is when a normal person with a normal reaction to alcohol, because despite what you guys hear in Alcoholics Anonymous, newcomers, this is for the newcomer, despite what you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous, normal people like alcohol too. They like the effects produced by alcohol. That's why a beer is $5 and a Pepsi is $1. The difference is alcohol does something differently for us than it does for normal people. So for a normal person, they get home from work, right? And they've had a stressful day and they're like, oh my God, I need a drink. Yeah, that's a normal person. Normal people go to the fridge, they might crack open a beer, might pour themselves a glass of wine, and they get what they need from it. They get that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a drink. And then they get quenched. And then they like have dinner and brush their teeth and then go to bed and maybe even get up and go to work the next morning. Like that doesn't sound normal to us, but I guarantee you there are people out there that can do that. Now, my abnormal reaction to alcohol is I get home from work, I think I need a drink, I crack open a beer, and it's on. And there's no off switch, right? And instead of getting quenched, I get more thirsty. And there's no off switch. I don't stop until I run out, black out, or pass out every single time. And then when I start trying to get in the ring with King Alcohol, trying to win, trying to figure out, maybe if I drink on a full stomach, maybe if I take, 3 ibuprofen and a 12-ounce glass of water with every 12-ounce beer and this and this and this. Yeah, that's the obsession, right? Maybe I can outthink it or whatever, right? And I can try that, and sometimes I might win a round or 2, but inevitably I get my ass handed to me by King Alcohol, and I'm too stupid to tap out. I get back up for another round, like every time I get back in the ring. And that is why I'm an alcoholic. That is what qualifies me to be an alcoholic. That's what qualifies my seat here. It's that once I start drinking, once I put drink in my body, I have a physical reaction that sets off a physical craving for more alcohol, for more liquid alcohol. And then once I stop, because I'm run out, blackout, or pass out, I have this mental obsession, this brain that tells me that I don't have that allergy, or I can outthink the allergy or outrun the allergy, or maybe if I just do this, or maybe if I just do that. And so that's how I got to you guys. I got to you guys with this insane alcoholic mind that if I wasn't literally insanely intoxicated, because I was rarely mildly intoxicated, just like the big book says, I was either insanely drunk or sober, right? But if I wasn't obliviated, like literally puking on my shoes and begging for mercy and trying to get out of trouble, then I was recovering from the terrible hangover. And some of my hangovers would take 2 to 3 days to recover from, of just being in bed and puking. And I think I did more puking the next day than I did the night of. And if I wasn't wasted recovering from a hangover, I was planning the next drink. I was the party girl, cocktail party, girls' night out, anything, you know, anything, any excuse to drink. And so 24/7, that's what went on in here. That's what went on in here. I mean, it sounded like a college party up in here. Drink, 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 24/7. And the miracle of this thing, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, is not that I haven't picked up a drink in 10 years, because I could have, you know, I heard things sometimes when I was new, like meeting makers make it, or, you know, a meeting a day will keep the drink away, or all of these things. And I could still be sober, you know, hanging on, white knuckling it from one meeting to a next, avoiding the cheese aisle, because, by the way, I couldn't go to Fred Meyer to buy cheese because it shares the aisle with the beer. And my obsession was that strong that I had to go across town to the other grocery store where the cheese was by itself and not near the liquor. Because that's how strong my obsession was. That's what you guys were dealing with when I got to you. Today, as a result of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can tell you that something magical has happened. Miraculous, in fact. Again, straight out of the big book. This is my experience, you know. And so I had to get through that first step. I did. I had to fully admit to I had to fully concede to my innermost self that I wasn't just allergic, but I was allergic to alcohol, and I had a mental obsession that needed a spiritual experience that only a spiritual experience could conquer. And that's where the second step came in, right? It's like step one was I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I have an allergic body and a mind that tells me I'm not allergic. So I'm basically screwed. So I needed something more. So second step for me was just as simple as, okay, you know, I can't, maybe something can, right? Maybe there's something out there that can. There's these people in these meetings that seem happy, joyous, and free, and I am not. So let's try it, right? So my third step, my first third step with my first sponsor, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. She said it was something that I did every day. I did it every day in the mirror, actually, because I can't lie to myself. So I had to go in the mirror, and I took I said the third step prayer every single day in the mirror before I brushed my teeth, because I didn't really have a higher power back then. I was using the group of drunks type higher power. So I would say the third step prayer in the mirror, and I would say, you know, I would offer myself to Alcoholics Anonymous to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt, da 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 da. So I did that. And I didn't really know, I was just going through the motions, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand the real third step is it's a decision. It's not something that I have to do every day. It's actually, ever since I did my last third step with my sponsor that I have now, and I've had her for 8 or 9 years now, I've never done another third step. You know, it says in our book that this is not something that we take lightly. We prepare for our third step, making sure we were ready before we proceed. I made sure I was ready. I took this third step like wedding vows. We got down on our knees. I wrote my own third step. The book tells me that the wording, of course, was quite optional, is what it says, expressing it without reservation. And I wrote my own third step without the thys and the thous. I just put in yous and me's instead of thys and thous. And I actually took my third step, and I haven't had to look back since that day 9 years ago, 10, whatever, however long it's been. Do I practice the principles of 2 and 3? Oh, every day in step 11. But I do not have to take another third step as long as I live if I stay in steps 10, 11, and 12. And that was a promise, not only from me, but from this big book. And, am I perfect in God's will 24/7? No. And I'm also not a perfect wife, but I don't have to get remarried every time I mess up, because I have a loving husband, just like I have a loving higher power, right? So I remind myself of the wedding vows that I took, or the vows that I took that day that I gave my will and my life over to the care of my higher power. And I get back on track, and I don't sit in morbid reflection. And I was able to do a fourth step, a genuine fourth step, where I cleared up the wreckage of my past. And it wasn't easy. It was actually probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. Thank God I never have to do another fourth step again if I stay in steps 10, 11, and 12, because step 10 is continued inventory. So I get to continue taking this inventory every day for the rest of my life. And I hopefully never have to relapse, so that I never have to do that fourth step again. My fifth step, it took me 8 hours. I sat with my sponsor for 8 hours. I told her exactly like in the big book, my whole life story. I read my fourth step to her. She helped me with step 6, which I did not like at the time, but she was right about some of the things that she saw. I sat for an hour and I did step 7. I made it to 50 minutes. I don't mean to lie from the podium. I made it to 50 minutes. I couldn't make it a whole hour. I have outside issues, ADHD. I I have a ton of outside issues. So I made it to 50 minutes, which was good enough for me, but, and it was good enough for my higher power. And I gave, I gave those defects up, and I asked God, to remove them, the ones that he sees fit, the ones that stand in the way of my usefulness to him and my fellows, and I don't get to pick which ones those are. I just get to be willing and ready, and he takes them when he's ready. And I have to have no reservation about that. Steps 8 and 9 step 8 was pretty easy. The first time, the second time, with the sponsor that I have now, step 8 was a hard pill to swallow, because the first thing on the top of my step 8 list was Alcoholics Anonymous. I had been, for 18 months, almost 2 years, I had been extremely disrespectful to Alcoholics Anonymous. I disrespected you. I disrespected your husband. I disrespected the podium. I talked about inappropriate things from the podium. I broke all your traditions unapologetically. I said that the only one that we needed was tradition 3, because that's the one that says that you can't kick me out when I break all your other traditions. I created a lot of wreckage, and part of my story is that, I created more wreckage in my first year sober than I did my last year drunk. And that's just my story. And I think it has something to do with the fact that alcohol wasn't my problem, it was my solution. And when you take my solution away, the problem gets bigger. And so I needed that spiritual experience as the result of those 12 steps in order to see myself for what I was. And once I had that, I was able to start making amends to AA. And I still do. To this day, I spend most of my time in tradition workshops and history studies. I'm like that AA geek now. And I came to you guys and I had never read a book in my life, except for Ramona the Great in 3rd grade. I didn't know how to read. I taught myself to read off of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And to this day, I'm still going to make up. I'm still going to live the rest of my life giving my life to Alcoholics Anonymous, because Alcoholics Anonymous gave me my life. And so by the time I got to my 10th step, after I made my amends, I had no idea that this was even possible, but my sponsor and I, we were in this book, and she we went through this book line by line, you know, word for word. When it said did, we did. When it said do, we did. When it said pray, we prayed. When it says write, we wrote. And that's how we worked through this thing. And by the time we got to the 10th step promises, you know, it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I got back in the ring with King Alcohol. I can't tell you how many times. And I never tapped out. And it says here that by this time, by the time we've done everything up until page 84, I will have tapped out. And I did. For by this time, sanity will have returned. That alcoholic insanity that tells me drink, 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 that college party that lives up in my head, it had been quiet. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. I can go in the cheese aisle. Like I can go buy cheese in the cheese aisle that shares the aisle with the beer, and I'm not tempted anymore. Yeah, like I stopped here and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like I thought that the 9th step promises were the extravagant promises. These sound pretty extravagant, right? And my sponsor's like, when's the last time you thought about a drink? And that's when my jaw dropped. It had been weeks, maybe months by this time, that a thought had even crossed my mind. And this from someone who was 24/7, either drunk, recovering from a hangover, or planning the next drink, and I had not thought about drinking for months. That's the miracle of it. It says we are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Here's my favorite promise. We have not even sworn it off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It doesn't exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Wow! So now I get to graduate. Where's my certificate? Like I'm out, right? Oh, no. Because once we recover by working steps 1 through 9, we get to keep what we have by those last 3 steps, right? The maintenance and growth steps. And if it was a 9-step program, I would be able to take my diploma and get out once I recovered. It tells me, you know, now I'm a recovered alcoholic. Now I can go, right? No. I have to put work in, and I have to continue steps 10, 11, and 12. And that's how I get to keep what I have. And ever since then, I have not taken this thing lightly, you guys. And ever since then, the last time a thought even crossed my mind, I was 18 months sober and I had a drinking dream. That's the last time I even had a thought, subconscious thought. Like, I can't believe how well this amazing program works, right? But I got to work at it. And I haven't let up, you know. There's been times that I've let up on some things, but not the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Not the maintenance of my spiritual condition. I take this thing seriously because it is a life and death thing for me. So the next paragraph talks about maintenance. It talks about the maintenance, right? It talks about what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Thank God that this doesn't say that I have a daily reprieve contingent on my spiritual condition, because you guys, I promise you, my spiritual condition is not in fit spiritual condition 24 hours a day. Like if this said that it was contingent on my spiritual condition, I would be drunk by now. But what it says here is it's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. So that means that it's an action program, right? The maintenance is the action that I take even when I don't want to take it. It means that I pray when I don't want to pray. It means I answer the phone and talk to that newcomer when I don't want to answer the phone and talk to that newcomer. It means that I take my inventory and admit my wrongs to my sponsor when I know that I'm keeping something, even when I don't want to call my sponsor and admit that I just did something wrong. You know, that's the maintenance. So even when I'm not in fit spiritual condition, so long as I don't let up on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, then I don't have to worry about ever taking a drink again. It doesn't talk in this book about being one day at a time not drinking. It talks about living life on life's terms one day at a time with the rest of the human race. But it doesn't talk about one day at a time not drinking, white knuckling it from one meeting to the next for the rest of my life. It talks about permanent sobriety, permanent recovery. And those are 2 quotes from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and not from Carrie Blake. So with that, I have been happy, joyous, and free now with lots of Cadillac problems. Believe me, I can give you some sob stories, but they're nothing compared to when I used to drink. And that's an understatement. So today, what I do for my 12th step, since I went through all of the others, today what I do for my 12th step is when I go to meetings, which I go to, I am a permanent fixture at my home group and we meet 6 days a week. And when I pull up at the church outside of my home group, I don't get out of my car and run in and say hi to my friends. I wait in my car and I pray for my higher power to please help me to keep all of my Cadillac problems in my car. They will be there for me when I return. And I pray that I can go in and I can look for the newcomer who looks scared and I can offer her a friend. I go in and I can look for the old man who hasn't been able to make a meeting in maybe 10, 11 months because he hasn't been able to get a ride to a meeting, and he finally got enough money to make a bus ride there. And I can welcome him with a cup of coffee. I can look for the out-of-town visitor like Amy, who is making a meeting with nobody that she knows, and I can go and welcome her and say, I don't recognize you, welcome to New Horizons. And that's what my higher power has me doing every day to keep in fit spiritual conditions. So I appreciate you guys having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. And I just, thank you.